All right. So, how do you onboard an AI agency client? You just close your client. Maybe they've got one agent, couple agents, outbound, inbound, whatever it is. The process is going to be the exact same. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how you can smoothly onboard a client. Because I've seen some really, really messy and kind of just overall not good onboarding processes, which are going to put your client off right off the bat. This is the first thing they're going to see. So you need them to be satisfied with it. So let's get into it. No more fluff. Let's just show you the process we follow. This is for both end users that we close ourselves and for end users that our partners in our partner program close. There's a little bit of variance throughout this process, not in the process as a whole, but just content like on the emails, for example, or payment forms. But nonetheless, I'm going to show you the process and you're going to see it flows the exact same way regardless, but I'll point out where those little, disparities are just so you can be very, very clear on it. So let's get into it. This is the Inside AI client onboarding process. Scroll over here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. So first things first, you close your client, right? You got them to sign your agreement, whatever it is. You got them to collect your payment. So this is one thing that's a little different for us when we close end users. Typically when we close end users, we just have them pay with a Stripe payment link on the call, right? That's the most ideal thing. Or you can send them a link to a form like this where they can pay. It's the same type of thing, but this is more so for the end users that our partners close because the partner is collecting data from the client, which they then need to pass to us. So it's a bit more of a process, but nonetheless, for you guys, you're probably just going to send them a Stripe payment link on the call, have them sign the agreement, yada, yada, yada. And then you can move them into the next step. So for us, or you can send them this kind of payment link where you collect their email and they pay in that payment link down below there, whatever the price is. And then what this does is when they submit this form, it triggers a Zap. This Zap has them send the welcome email. And so there's a little bit of a difference, right? For your client that you're closing, you're going to want to send them a welcome email that is tailored to them. You'll see this welcome email is tailored to our partners, which again, you'll just change a little bit of the verbiage here. That's it. But still, I would send a very similar email, and we do send a very similar email. But as you can see, below is the onboarding form for your client to fill out, or you're giving it to your client, you would say for you to fill out with all the necessary information for a solutions engineer to begin their build. The solutions engineer is the person on our team that's going to be doing the fulfillment for this client. I'm not going to be doing it. It's going to be our solutions engineer. And so you might be doing fulfillment for your client right now, but eventually you're going to want to have somebody do it for you, right? And you pay them a commission. And so these are the three things to keep in mind when your client is filling out the form. And then for this, you'd want to say, when you're filling out the form, make sure they fill out every question in as much detail as possible. And you'll see the form over here. It's a lot of questions. And the more info our team has, the more they have to work with and the better the build will be. We want them to be filling out this form in as much detail as possible because if they leave it vague, we're going to be struggling to build that agent. The more detail they give, the more in depth we can build this thing out. Make sure when your client books their onboarding call with one of our solutions engineers, they add you to the call as well. Again, this is for our partners. So for this, you might just want to say, make sure when you book your onboarding call, you add all necessary team members that need to be present to the invitation, something along those lines, right? And then we just let them know what the fulfillment process is going to look like. Client fills out onboarding form, client books onboarding call, solutions engineer begins build. And once the build is complete, the solutions engineer and client have a launch call to launch the build. Here's the link to complete the onboarding form. And so in here, we have them pass that link to their client, but for you, you're passing it directly to your client. You would just want them to fill out the onboarding form right here and now. The quicker you get it, the better. Most people will fill it out, at least in our experience, within kind of the first 48 hours. If they're dragging it on past that, you kind of want to shoot them messages and have them speed it up a bit. And so that link right there, we like to use Typeform, sends them to a form that looks just like this. This is where we're collecting all the necessary information for this build so that we can have everything we need, because you need to keep in mind, right? You ideally want to be speaking to this client as little as possible, in my opinion. And you also want to be in the position where you need to give as little support and maintenance as possible after the build. So to do that, it needs to be a very thorough onboarding process. I've seen some people do some really bad onboarding process, which again, it's fine. We did that at the beginning as well. It's a bit of a live and you learn type of thing, right? It's a bit of a learning curve to see what works smoothly. But I've seen at the beginning where they're going back and forth like 100 times. And we did that at the start too, man. Our first client took a long time to fulfill for. We had a lot of things that come up that we didn't know what to expect. But now we have this process kind of just down to a science to where it's very, very smooth. I personally now don't even speak to our clients. It's just our solutions engineer. He's hopping on and doing the fulfillments for them. So we're getting their name, their email, their phone number. And you might be wondering, hey, why use Typeform? Why not Google Forms or, Airtable? I personally like the look of Typeform. I think it looks really, really sleek. That's purely it. I think it just looks nice. We're black and white as our colors, really a bit of purple, but I think it just looks super clean here. So email, phone number, business name, Insight login. So here we have them create their account inside of our software, which they can do right here. And then they drop their login information, their email and password right here, so that our solutions engineer is able to log into their account and do all the agent builds, integrations, and everything that they need. Then we have them upload a document, whether it's a Google Doc or a PDF or whatever, with all the questions that prospects might have when they're on the phone with the AI, objections they might have, just general information they want the AI to have, because the AI needs to be equipped with all the information so that it can handle objections, answer questions, know what the price is, know how long the client works with their customers and their clients, exactly what services they offer, where they're located, all this sort of stuff, which is information the AI is not going to know unless we give it to it, right? Like there's no way the AI is going to just magically know the price of what you offer unless we give it that information. So we need all of that. We need this to be very, very in depth. The more in depth, the better. And it's also very good to emphasize with your client that, hey, this needs to be in depth. That's why we write in that email there. The more in depth, the better. And then we have them upload a script, because most people that we work with, they already have a team in place, right? Or they already have at least one person, maybe it's just a single setter or a call or whatever it is, or an SDR who's calling, following a script. We want that script because odds are that script is usually pretty decent. When we get these scripts from clients, they're usually pretty good. We usually don't tweak them too much, kind of just refine them to make them sound better and flow better with the AI itself. But it's very useful to get this script so we know what kind of flow they're already doing that's already working with humans. So that way, when we switch it over to the AI, it can keep that same kind of flow and just massively increase the results because of how much volume the AI can do, how automated it is, all that sort of stuff. And so we get a script from them directly, and we use that with the Q&A doc / objection handling doc above to create the AI itself. And then we're asking them, how many agents did you purchase and what is the purpose of each one? So you're going to see later, we ask a question similar to this later down the line because I need to see twice. I need to see that these people are 100% wanting an agent doing what they say here. So you'll see below, we ask a similar question again, just kind of rephrase to make sure that these answers are congruent. Because if they answer one thing here and something different down below in the other question, then it's a red flag, right? Okay, now what are you asking? And so you want to make sure they're fully clear on what they want and you're fully clear on how to go about the build. So here it might be, one cold call or one, AI to get triggered via API when leads come from Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever it is. And so regardless of what it is, you want to make sure you have this information. Then how many follow-up calls would you like for each lead and how often would you like it to call? Again, another really important question that we want to have for the AI, right? How many times is the AI following up? Is it calling leads within the first 5 minutes of the leads come through? Is it calling them instantly? Do you want to give the lead like 10 minutes to book themselves? Maybe they have a ton of copy to read, a VSL to go through, so you don't want the AI to call them right away. Maybe you want the AI to call them the next day. Really depends. Maybe you want the AI to call them every day for 24 hours apart, every day for a week. Maybe you want them to call 5 times a day for a month. Depends. So we want to get that information from them. And then explain your business as if you were explaining it to a kid. Again, just give us more information about your business. Who's your niche target market? Again, we just want more clarity on everything. What are your main problems, constraints they face? Again, more stuff that we can use in the knowledge base and the build itself, because the problems, constraints, this can give us an idea of what they're usually facing and kind of tweak the copy in the script itself, answer questions in slightly different tones, program the background context of the AI to kind of account for whatever the biggest problem constraint is, just to make the AI perform better overall. That's why I say the more information, the better. What do you want this agent or agents to do specifically? This is the question I was talking about. We asked a similar one right up here, sorry. And so we ask a similar one again. What do you want these agents or agents to do specifically? I need to see that the answer here matches exactly what the answer is up here. Because if they're different in any way, that's a red flag. And I'm going to be, our team's going to be, all right, why are these different here? These should be the exact same. And so usually they are the exact same, but it's just good to make sure. And then any other info we should know, just anything else they throw in there. And then book your onboarding call. So there's a Calendly at the end of the type form here. They pick a time for their onboarding call. That is on our solutions engineer's calendar. And then after they submit the form, it triggers a zap. And so this zap, as you can see, the trigger is new type form entry, which is when they submit this form. That data all gets added to a spreadsheet where we track all of our past client builds and everything inside of there. And then it sends a Discord message, which looks like this, to our solutions engineer. So you might be wondering, hey, why is it split up into 3? That's purely because there's only a certain amount of characters that can fit inside of one. And with all this information, it's way too much. So we have to split it up into 3 even kind of messages, but it looks like one inside of Discord because it's one after the other. And at the very top of the message is this: at solutions engineer, which pings them and notifies them a partner has submitted their done for you fulfillment form, or in your case, a new end user or a new client has submitted their fulfillment form, whatever you want to call it. But you want to ping your solutions engineer or whoever it is on your team that's doing it. Maybe it's you right now. let you know, hey, they submitted their form. One way or the other, you want to be notified. And then they book their onboarding call, right? So this is what we call the onboarding initiation call. So this is the call. The build hasn't started yet. We're just gathering all the information we need. Our solutions engineer is going through that form, usually the day or two before this onboarding call, making sure they're clear on it. And then when they are hopping on this call with the clients, they are making sure everything on the fulfillment form is proper, or it's what they actually want done, making sure the engineer is fully clear on how to go about the build. On this call, we're also going to get access to any of the CRMs, the systems that they want us to integrate it with, anything along those lines. The main point of this initiation call is to make sure our engineer is 100% clear, 110% clear on how to go about this build before getting started. The last thing you want to happen is to be midway through your build and the client reaches out, hey, can we actually do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Hey, can we add this? We've had that happen before, and that will take a build from being 5 days to a month if they keep throwing stuff out there. So we now add into our agreement, if you want changes done after, it's an additional charge. If you make changes to the AI and you want us to come in and fix it after, it's an additional charge, because you want to be careful, man. People will go in, even after you build the AI and show them that it works, they will go in and change it. And so you want to have that in your agreement or in some place where it's very clear, because the last thing you want is to be going back and forth with stupid things like that. It's just not worth the time. All right. And so then the solutions engineer starts the build. And so maybe it's usually an agent that looks something along these lines, a node script agent, connecting the calendars on the right, building the knowledge bases, selecting the time zone, maybe creating a voice message if they want it, the background context, the voices, the language, just building the whole script and making sure it is working flawlessly. So they are doing very thorough testing as well with this. Like usually we tell clients it takes about a week, 7 business days is what we usually say to build everything. If it's a simple build, it'll be quicker. If it's a more complex one, it'll be longer. But on average, it's about 7 business days. And we are telling them every single time that we are going to be doing very thorough testing. We're going to build, integrate everything, and we're going to be testing it like crazy. We'll send them recordings as we're building it so they can see what it's sounding like, give us a bit of feedback if they want certain things changed, all that sort of stuff as we're going through the build. But we want to make it as seamless and smooth as possible. And then we're setting up, the integrations, the follow-up triggers, the webhooks, all this stuff. We're setting up the follow-up sequences based on the frequency of the follow-ups they asked for in that type form, right? One of the questions was, how often do you want the AI following up? That's why, so we can build these triggers, whether it's inside a Go High Level or whatever the case is. Go High Level makes it very easy, and we just have a snapshot at this point to where it's very easy to add in. But the way this workflow works, let me zoom in a little more so I can show you a bit clearer here. So the way this works is a lead gets added. And then it waits however long you want it to wait. Here it's 7 minutes. Maybe you want the AI to call the lead within the first 30 seconds or maybe 15 minutes. Maybe have a VSL to watch or something and you want to give them a chance to book themselves. Here it's 7 minutes because we want to give them a bit of time to book organically, right? They might still be going through the funnel at the 4-minute mark and then book themselves, right? So you don't want to call them immediately, in this case at least. But then what we have is an if-else statement in Go High Level. If any of you have, played with if-else statements in Go High Level, it's very, very good, very useful, because what this one's set up to do is to detect if the lead is in the booked call automation, then it removes them. Because if they're in the booked call automation, that means they already booked a call. And so we want to remove them altogether from this because we don't want to call them to book them in if they already booked. But if the lead is not in the booked call automation, that means they haven't booked yet. So we want to call them, which sends them this way. Then adds the tag Insight Booking Attempt. And then that tag adds them to another workflow, which has the webhook in it that triggers the AI to call. So that's how we go about it. And then maybe the AI booked the lead on that point, on that call, or maybe it didn't. Maybe they didn't answer. And then we wait here 26 hours. Then the next day, same if-else statement. If the contact is in the booked call automation, remove them so we don't call them again. But if they haven't booked yet and they're not in the automation, we know they haven't booked yet. So send them this way, add the tag again, call them. And so as you can see, it's Insight Booking Attempt. It adds them to that workflow, triggers the webhook to call, and then at the end removes that tag so that they can potentially be added again the next day. And sometimes we have these workflows literally go for like 50 legs of this here, because sometimes they want, 2 follow-ups a day for a month, 1 follow-up a day for a day, or for however a week. They want 3 follow-ups a day for the first week, 2 a day for the next week, yada, yada, yada. But sometimes people want it to be pretty extensive. And then after all this, the build is done. We're ready to go. The client approved the recordings we sent over. And then we are going to do the AI agent launch call. And so what this AI agent launch call is launching the agent. So we're hopping on call, or the solutions engineer, I should say, is hopping on call, or you are in this case. You're hopping on with the client, making sure they fully approve of everything, maybe you're doing some last minute kind of revisions with them on this call, but then you're doing some tests with them. Maybe they're trying to call the AI as well, try to break it, push it, just fully approve it, and then you roll out the build. And so that's the whole process. Pretty straightforward. And then it leads to a very smooth onboarding, which smooth onboarding always equals a happy client and a ton of referrals and endless money for you. Oops, I spelled this wrong. Or autocorrect. No, I spelled it right. That's autocorrect. Endless money for you, not endless Monday. You don't want endless Mondays. Endless money for you. Smooth onboarding is huge because if you have a messy onboarding process, that's the first kind of actual activity this client is having with you. If your onboarding process is a mess, that's immediately going to put them off. Imagine a kind of a comparison is imagine you're in a restaurant, right? Imagine you get seated at a restaurant and you're waiting for the first waiter or waitress to come over to you to ask you for your drinks when you first get there. If they take 30 minutes to come over to you, it doesn't even matter how good your meal is after, because that 30-minute wait to get your water at the start ruins everything. You're probably not going to tip as good. You're probably not going to come back to that restaurant. It doesn't even matter how good the meal is. Same with this process. If your onboarding process is terrible, complete shit, it doesn't matter how good the service is after. People are not going to want to work with you. They're not going to refer people to you. And so that's the same thing, because if you get to a restaurant and within the first minute or 2 minutes, the waitress is already over there asking you what you drink, laughing with you, making jokes, really making it an inviting and welcoming environment, the meal can be pretty average after that, but you're going to still probably think, hey, that was a pretty good time. That was a pretty good dinner, right? So that's why the onboarding process is so important. If the onboarding process is so smooth, even if mistakes come on later down the line, the client will not be inclined to leave. Because if you maybe have a mistake down the line, maybe the AI, you misprogrammed it in some way. If your onboarding process and everything up to date was so good, the client's gonna be like, hey, can we just tweak this? Whereas with the dinner analogy, it doesn't matter. If your onboarding process is terrible and then a mistake comes up, they're gonna be like, oh my God, these people suck, right? So you need to make sure everything is dialed in the onboarding process. And that's why it's so important. This is what we've done over the months to where we got this process very, very refined. I highly, highly recommend you copy this exact same process. Makes things very, very easy. And I literally recommend you watch this video again all the way through and set up everything as I'm going through it, because I literally show you everything. The zaps, the web, the forms, the emails, everything. Go ahead, set that up, and your clients will love you.